Have you ever felt emptiness flood your chest as if you were carrying winter inside you, even on sunny days? Something tightened, and you fell silent, imprisoning the little girl you once were seen and then ignored. That part of you, small and fragile, continues to guide your loves with the urgency of someone seeking in another, the embrace that never arrived. You waited, and no one came back. As long as the unconscious is not made conscious, it governs your life, and you call it destiny. If this kind of reflection truly touches you, perhaps this is your place. Consider subscribing to the channel. There is an invisible force that governs your affective choices, the psyche of the wounded little girl who still seeks to be seen, loved, and validated. She is that emotional part frozen in time which believes, with all the innocence in the world, that the next love will bring the cure. The woman who looks for the right man with the eyes of a needy child always attracts the same absence in different forms. You loved with everything, and you were left hanging as if each departure confirmed your belief that you were not worthy of a complete love. Clarissa Pinkola Estes describes this girl as the soul silenced by the lack of nurture, and until she is heard, all love will be flight or obsession. You turned your heart into a shelter even for those who never stayed, offering crumbs of yourself as penance for mistakes that weren't even yours. When the child who once felt invisible becomes the one at the helm, she accepts crumbs as emotional compensation, learning to confuse scarcity with affection. It's time to stop this cycle. This video is not about attracting a man. It's about creating an internal space where the little girl can finally breathe. It's not about seduction techniques or ready-made conquest formulas. It's an invitation to dive into your own story, recognize the wounds that still echo, and offer yourself the care that was missing. Only when the inner girl is held by the adult woman you have become will the healthy man cease to be the exception and become the mirror of your emotional maturity. Prepare to hear truths that may sound harsh, but that come with the tenderness of someone who understands your scars as maps of healing. Let's together illuminate this ancient ground, unravel the tangle between past and present, and plant the seeds of a conscious love, free from the weight of absences. Here, the rebirth of the healed feminine begins with a compassionate look inward. Women who give too much carry a desperate sparkle in their eyes, as if every act of giving were a lost ticket to the hope of being saved. You feel in your chest this urgency that cannot be put into words, like an underground river that insists on breaking through the dam. Everything in you seems to shout for unconditional love, that kind of affection you swore you knew in childhood, but that dissolved in absences. You waited, and learned that any detail of attention, no matter how small, was worth the price of a piece of your soul. The child who once felt invisible today accepts emotional crumbs as if they were gold. You learn to confuse fragments of affection with full reciprocation, to believe that accepting crumbs revealed strength when, in truth, it was the echo of an ancestral lack. There is an automatic movement in you that repeats the pattern of one who was left alone, fueling the illusion that if you give enough, the emptiness will be filled. This illusion causes you to continue seeking outside the warmth that lives within. The magnetism of your wound is invisible to rational eyes, but powerful enough to attract the emotionally unavailable man. You do not choose. You are chosen by this ancient pain that sticks to your energy and calls to itself situations that repeat abandonment. Every cold glance, every promise never fulfilled, every departure without warning echoes the same melody, that of the little girl who believed in fairy tale princes and died of fright upon seeing that the castle was just an illusion. As long as she continues to guide your desires, you will call passion what is, in fact, ancestral need. If this resonated with you in any way, leave a like. It shows that these conversations are necessary. Have you ever found yourself living on tiptoe in a relationship, alert to any sign of goodbye? The body reacts before the mind, a chill in the stomach, trembling. Hands, the chest tight as if an invisible hand was squeezing your heart. You silently beg for a word of affection that validates your existence. This urgency makes any attention seem like true love, and you repeat acts of self-annihilation as if winning a survival trophy. But this survival is bitter because every trophy comes with the weight of what was left behind. Imagine an unsent letter, written in sleepless nights, full of what-ifs and maybes that never reached their destination. You see, recall every word, every comma, every sigh that awaited a response. It was there in that act of writing without sending that you realized the extent of your loneliness. It is not enough to speak to someone who does not listen. And yet, the letter remains in mental drawers, kept as a trophy of a hope that refused to die, although it was never reciprocated. The wound that chooses for you also takes residence in your body. When the phone vibrates, your heart races as if it were salvation. When the reply does not come, the same vibration becomes a sting, and you gather every piece of your self-love, believing you have no right to anything beyond crumbs. In silence, the inner girl queues up, seeking external validation, and each absence becomes an invisible scar marking the skin of your soul. Therefore, I invite you to feel this pattern as one watches an old film, with compassion but without scales of judgment. Observe the sequence of automatic gestures that always lead you to the same place, frustration. Recognizing this unconscious script is the first step to taking control of the narrative. When the light of consciousness falls on this inner child, crumbs lose their charm and cease to dictate the value of your affection. The path goes forward, but before advancing, breathe deeply and feel. There is a part of you that deserves more than fragments of attention. There is a little girl who needs to be seen whole, held without hurry. And when she feels safe, your desires will find new paths. Paths not traced by ancient pain, but illuminated by the strength of the woman awakening to her own power. The paternal figure that marked your childhood left subtle traces, like shadows projected in the corners of your soul. If your father was absent, cold, or critical, the girl you were learned early to look to the world for an authority to give value to your being. You feel in your body the echo of that gaze that never met your eyes, the voice that never celebrated your small achievements, the embrace that never comforted your tears. And now in adult life, without realizing it, you seek to rediscover that primary love in the embrace of a man who, even if he cares, does not hold the key to that long-closed chest. Jung called this pattern the father complex. It is as if a part of you projects onto your partner the hope of reclaiming your lost worth. You, wise and wounded woman, look to him expecting him to offer exactly what was missing: recognition, security, unconditional validation. This projection has the force of an invisible magnet that attracts not one who can love, but one who will replicate ancestral distances, whether due to fear of intimacy, learned patterns, or unconscious fragilities. You waited, and many men became phantom paternal figures, capable only of reminding you of the painful feeling of rejection. While this inner orphan governs your bonds, your choices always seem charged with an almost childish urgency. You feel a subtle anxiety in your stomach, a knot forming in your back as if your body were a chronic sensor of absence. It is the unconscious orphanhood that makes every act of kindness be decoded as salvation and every withdrawal be lived as definitive abandonment. And so a cycle repeats. You get too close, confuse care with love, and then suffer from the distance that, in truth, is a reflection of the internal void. The orphan archetype manifests in small signals. You fear being left alone in the supermarket. You love so much that you sacrifice yourself to exhaustion. You shrink before any criticism because you fear that every rejection will confirm the sentence your inner child carries: I am not enough. This emotional bait causes those who do not understand your pain to also withdraw, reinforcing the myth that there is no figure capable of offering the nurture you seek. It is a labyrinth without visible walls, but with infinite traps. But here is the turning point: the whole. Masculine does not enter the field of a woman who still tries to fill her emptiness with external affection. He senses the silent call of the whole woman, the one who looks inward before seeking outward. When you begin to recognize this archetype, something moves inside you. The orphan gains a voice but ceases to be the one at the helm. You breathe deeply and realize that the strength you sought in another already inhabits your cells. The emotional authority that you missed in another is in your own hands, in your ability to soothe the child with tenderness and maturity. Share this video with another woman who needs to hear this truth and begin her inner healing. When reflecting on this myth of paternal projection, visualize a scene. The girl you were, sitting on the floor of an empty hall, extends her hand in silence to one who does not return. Now imagine the woman you are, with the same knees touching the ground, but with a firm gaze and a nourished heart. Instead of waiting for the prince, she remembers that she can don the armor of self-love, embrace her own child, and give herself the care she always deserved. This process requires courage, looking at your own history without guilt, recognizing the failures of those who left, and, at the same time, forgiving yourself for having allowed the orphan to lead your steps. The integration of this archetype happens when the adult woman takes the child in her arms, offering her what she never received: understanding, validation, and presence. It is in this simple yet profound internal gesture that the energetic field transforms. When the inner orphan finds its safe harbor within you, the pattern of seeking the father figure in another dissolves. You no longer project impossible expectations and begin to see potential partners as equals on your journey, not as saviors or villains. It is then that healthy love, guided by emotional transparency, can finally bloom. Walking through this symbolic territory is not an act of psychological vanity, but a gesture of compassion towards yourself. Allow yourself to listen to the soft voice of the girl who screamed in silence, and now offer her the embrace that was missing. When she feels whole, your bonds will transform, no longer replicas of old wounds, but reflections of a woman who learned to love herself first. There is a silent moment within you when everything changes. You realize that you were chasing a shadow, an echo that reflected only your own lack, and not the living image of a whole man. Stop and feel it in your body. The urgency that became a pattern, the racing of the heart whenever you imagined the perfect encounter, as if life only made sense in the expectation of a meeting that always slipped away. You searched, and found nothing. It was then, almost without realizing, that an internal calm emerged, leaving space for something new to breathe. The whole masculine is not attracted to veiled despair. He feels the serene pulse of a woman who no longer begs for attention, but who offers presence. This man emerges when you return to the past, the role that belongs to it, that of memory, not of driving force. Imagine a calm lake. The more you try to stir the surface to see the moon's reflection, the more the image distorts. When you stop, when you suspend the impulse to seek, the reflection reappears clear, exact, whole. So it is with healthy love. Within this restorative silence, the counterintuitive turn happens. You discover that love is not born from empty promises, nor from pretty words that echo in the void. It flourishes in the fertile soil of your emotional self-nurture. You celebrate every part of yourself with the same tenderness you long to receive. You breathe into the depth of your chest, murmur words of comfort to your inner child, recognize every stored tear as a tribute to your resilience. And it is in this harvest of compassion that the energetic field redefines itself. The revelation is almost mystical. When you become the territory where your little girl can play without fear, the right man appears as a guest, not as an invader. He does not enter to fill a void, but to walk beside you in a garden you yourself cultivated. You feel in your stomach an unprecedented lightness, as if your inner world had expanded and left less space for ghosts. The weight of scarcity dissipates, and that sense of urgency turns into a gentle curiosity about every gesture of the other. It is important to note that this process does not happen in a day of epiphany. It is a slow dance, made of small steps. You recognize a pattern, you welcome it, you soften it with the adult presence that was missing. Each time you choose to nurture your inner child, need loses its power. You say, in thought or out loud, "I take care of you now." And by uttering this simple phrase, the inner universe resonates in chords of healing. Each loving word you direct to yourself generates a wave that crosses the invisible barrier between you and those who come next. You may then notice that encounters cease to be urgent. They begin to happen almost casually, like passing through the right door at exactly the right moment without having forced the knob. A prolonged glance, a gentle gesture, a conversation that flows without hurry. In these details, you feel that you are not being rescued, but respected. The woman who learned to look inward no longer sees in the other her salvation. She sees a companion on her own path. Repetition with intention. You rested, and something blossomed. You loved yourself. You loved and opened to the other's reflection. This cadence of words echoes like a therapeutic mantra, for each syllable brings back the power that dispersed in passing loves. After all, it is not in external rescue that sustenance is found, but in internal reconciliation. Allow yourself now to observe your relationships without urgency, without anguish. See how the whole man approaches someone who does not demand but offers presence. Feel the soft weight of trust settling in your chest, replacing the knot of need, and perceive the profound mystery. The right man arrives when you stop seeking him with the girl's despair. He arrives as a mirror, reflecting a woman who no longer seeks but lives in plenitude. There is an instant in which the soul asks for a gesture that speaks louder than 1,000 words, something that crosses time and offers the inner girl the presence she never received. To begin this bridge between past and present, take a photo of yourself between 5 and 10 years old. Observe the face that looked at the world with the same eyes that now carry memories of abandonment and desire. Feel in your body the resonance of that childlike gaze, still curious, still hopeful. Recognize that that girl lives within you, still awaiting an embrace that confirms her whole, not in fragments. With a pen that glides smoothly over paper, write a letter to her, not as a victim seeking solace, but as an adult woman who now speaks with a firm and compassionate voice. Tell her what you have learned about life, about strength, and about tenderness. Use your own words to thank her for the courage she had to survive absences, and offer her the care that was missing. Say that from now on, you will be the one to hold her hand, to dry her tears, and to celebrate her silent achievements. Feel the rhythm of your pulse as you write, each letter, imprinting a new pact of self-love. Allow yourself then to ask out loud, from whom am I still expecting something that never came? Place this question at the center of your heart. Listen to the answer that arises in the whisper of memories. Perhaps it is a word never spoken by a father, a gesture denied by a mother, an affection lost amidst the struggles of those who should have cared for you. Gather that feeling, give it a name, and offer the inner child the relief of understanding. She bears no guilt. She only carried the hope entrusted to her in childhood. The next gesture happens in front of the mirror. Facing your own reflection, breathe deeply and speak directly to the eyes that meet yours. Say, "Now I take care of you." Let these words travel through every inch of your body, reaching the little girl who once cowered in the corner of her soul. Feel the symbolic texture of this moment, an invitation for adult and child to reunite on common ground, without hurry and without reproach. The voice that now cares speaks with serene firmness, offering not orders but a refuge where fear no longer reigns. This symbolic ritual is a portal. By embracing the inner child, you undo the tangle that kept past and present intertwined in patterns of pain. Every word written, every whispered phrase is like a dewdrop that waters the seed of self-compassion. When the child feels that, at last, there is someone who protects her, the unconscious impulse to seek love outside loses strength. The energetic field expands, creating space between you and old wounds. You can repeat this gesture whenever you feel the weight of need. The letter can be reread, the phrase before the mirror uttered as many times as necessary. Over time, the child learns to know the adult voice, learns to trust its soothing tone and rests. And then a fertile silence emerges, free of urgency and anxiety, an inner soil ready for conscious love. When this symbolic practice becomes routine, a new kind of relationship blooms, no longer governed by the thirst for fulfillment, but by the sharing of one who is already whole. The healthy man does not find there a dirt road worn by abandonment, but a path paved by integrity. He arrives to walk by your side, respecting every curve of your story, without trying to fix what you yourself have learned to heal. Allow yourself to make this practice a ritual of self-affirmation. Write, speak, feel, and watch how, little by little, the inner child becomes the best friend of the woman you are. The love that once echoed in screams will need less volume, for it will be sustained by the certainty that you alone are enough. In that generous space, true love finds passage and is born at last, free from the shadows of the past. Your love life can be seen as an immense inner garden, a space cultivated with the seeds of your affections and watered by your hopes. Imagine this garden still in the morning's dim light, when the dew covers every petal and leaf, creating tiny mirrors of light. If the inner girl still carries the fear of abandonment, she treads carefully, uprooting the most delicate flowers to prevent them from being lost. You feel it in your body, the weight of doubt tightening your chest, as if each flower were a promise and each fallen petal a sign of betrayal. When the inner child governs, the garden becomes a minefield where any act of refinement turns into a trap against the desire not to be hurt again. By contrast, when the inner girl learns to play alone, the garden takes on another face. It opens into secret rooms of light where flowers bloom without hurry, splashing colors and scents you had never noticed. You, as a loving gardener of yourself, gather each fragment of you, warmth, fear, tenderness, and deposit it in the fertile soil of acceptance. It is in this transformation that the metaphor blossoms. Self-care is not an act of selfishness, but a gesture of profound respect for the life that pulses within. You picture this scene, a child running among sunflowers, touching each petal with her fingertips, laughing because the sun seems to converse with her. This poetic image is the symbol of an internal encounter, the free girl, without pressures, discovering the magic of existing without demands. She is the one who shows the adult woman that joy does not depend on external applause. When the inner girl dances among the flowers, she does not look outward for approval. She allows herself to be the spectacle, whole in her capacity to enchant herself. You can feel now the difference between plucking a flower to give to another and letting it grow full where it chose. When the inner child feels safe, she waters the soil with her curiosity and affection, but does not uproot petals to garner external attention. Instead of demanding care, she celebrates every rain that falls, every sun that warms, every butterfly that lands unannounced. The woman who embraces this internal dance does not resent absence. She welcomes the changing seasons and understands that the garden, like the heart, lives in cycles of bloom and rest. This metaphor gains even deeper contours when you realize that there is no greater gardener than yourself. The healthy man, when he arrives, does not take control of the seeds nor impose his own flowers. He comes as a curious visitor, admiring the landscape you have tended, respecting every bed, every secret path. He walks gently, without stumbling over the dreams you planted in the soil, and delights in the genuine colors without trying to transplant anything you did not sow. This encounter only occurs when the inner girl discovers that she can play and live without depending on external rescue. Repetition with intention, you cultivated, and the flowers bloom. You cared, and the scent spreads. This slow cadence invites the garden to breathe at its own pace, without hurry. In every deceleration, the inner girl finds space to explore, and the adult woman watches with tenderness the growth that happens by its own impulse. There is no longer a reason to pluck petals. They remain attached to their stems by the vigor of well-nourished roots. Feel this expansion in your body. In the center of your chest, a space of freshness. In your abdomen, the gentle warmth of someone who knows how to recognize her own worth. Each flower that emerges is a reminder that you do not need to beg for a reason to exist. The inner garden is living proof of your capacity to nourish yourself, and when this conviction spreads, love ceases to be escape and becomes presence. A side-by-side walk, never a rush to fill voids. Allow yourself to walk through this invisible garden, observing how the colors intensify when you stop forcing the bloom. Every conscious step is a rite of celebration. The soil vibrates under your feet. The petals wave as greetings. The wind whispers secrets of renewal. You realize that the inner girl, now free to play, does not seek heroes. She enjoys the sun, the rain, and the small moons that the night brings, and the adult woman beside her watches with shining eyes, proud of having learned to care for herself. When this metaphor comes to life within you, everything around transforms. Relationships cease to be power games and become dances of reciprocity. The healthy man approaches with respect, not as a savior, but as a companion for adventures in your private garden. And you, full gardener of yourself, find a love that needs no proof, because the flowers already tell your story of healing and freedom. In the silence that follows the inner lullaby, the soul reveals its deepest wisdom. Every symptom is also an attempt by the soul to heal itself. The repetition of absent men is the cry of your unhealed childhood. Each old pattern, Each unconscious choice, each poorly filled affection whispers the same story. There was a girl waiting for an embrace that never came. This Jungian phrase echoes like a chant across time and invites us to listen to what lay hidden beneath emotional ruins. When we stop fighting our own ghosts and reach out to embrace the wound, we open a crack of light where once there were only shadows. There is beauty in this revelation, understanding that emptiness is not punishment, but a gateway to healing. The meaning of pain can transform it into a portal, not a prison. Viktor Frankl brings this reminder that, by giving suffering a new meaning, we create the possibility of rebirth. You may have felt each word resonate in your body, perhaps like a breath of hope crossing your ribcage and reaching the center of your chest. It is there, in that space that once contracted at the taste of need, that the soil for conscious love is born. Healing your inner girl is not an end. It is the beginning of true love. The first step is taken when you recognize that we are not incomplete, but carry memories that cry out for acknowledgement. The woman who integrates her lost childhood becomes fertile ground for mature relationships. She does not love to be validated, but because she is whole. Feel this expansion in your stomach. There is no longer urgency to be saved. There is only the desire to walk hand in hand with someone who respects your inner soil, and the healthy man cannot resist this energy. He feels that by being with her, he also comes home. He does not arrive as invader, nor as heroic rescuer. He arrives as a respectful visitor, curious to explore every corner of your emotional garden, immune to the temptation to fill gaps that you yourself supply. In this encounter, every gesture reflects balance. The look that honors your story, the touch that reveres your healing, the words that recognize your autonomy. Allow yourself to notice the transformation in small, everyday details. Here, a conversation that flows lightly, without demands. There, a call that does not require an immediate response. Elsewhere, a caress that arrives at the right time without hurry. Each delicate moment is a tribute to the internal work you have done. And little by little, the emotional landscape renews. The garden that once feared the frost of abandonment now blooms in vivid colors, driven by the consistency of the soil you yourself cultivated. If something inside you opened with this video, write in the comments. Sometimes sharing also heals. And if you want to continue on this soul journey, we're here whenever you want to. Return. These words are not a protocol request, but a sincere gesture of invitation. Share your symbolic story, your ritual phrase, your small rebirth. After all, your voice can light the path for another woman who, like you, seeks to recognize and embrace the girl who lives within. Perhaps absence was the soil where you planted your own wholeness, and this garden now blooms in conscious love. In the quiet of this moment, celebrate each open petal, each strengthened root. Breathe deeply, feel the vastness of your interior, and acknowledge you already carried in silence the harbor where true love now docks.